you very much, Ken. Okay, our final speaker is Shelley Asquith.
Hi everyone. As we've heard, it can be quite easy to feel quite depressed about what's going on in education, especially what's happening to my members in particular. Grants are now gone, maintenance grants, fees are on the rise again, and in many cities the rents are not affordable for working class students trying to go to university. And if you're not from here, if you're an international student, it looks like the government is about to shut the door on you. Everything that I relied on throughout my time in education maintenance allowance at college, a grant and a bursary at university, non-profit halls, is all gone now. And I want to try and focus on what we can win though and how, so we can kind of hopefully leave on a bit of a positive. Because I do think this year has the potential to be quite critical. Because where there's a housing crisis, there are those who are taking on landlords through rent strikes and eviction resistance. While discrimination is ever present, there are those challenging institutionalised racism and sexism. While the new HE bill continues in the Commons, students are preparing to resist through multifaceted direct action. And while austerity and inequality are dominant, we've seen the emergence of wide alliances made up of students, workers, migrants and other networks. As we know, we're living through a period of political rebirth for the left, one where new and old ideas and political projects are clashing and merging and developing. And that process is not only exciting, it's absolutely necessary. In the student movement, in my 7 or so years of involvement, I've seen the focus of radical militant action shift from tuition fees and education cuts towards the cost of living. At first, I think the left kind of rejected this shift. We worried that it was a preoccupation and risked demobilising the student movement. It risked letting consumerism culture take over. But actually, that battle with the cost of living crisis is now manifesting as a battle with capital, through the process of rent strikes in particular. In the last 2 years, across the UK, rents in student halls have gone up by 18%. The average room now represents 85% of the maximum student loan available. And in London, as we know, rents are excessively high. The average rent per week for a room in student halls in the capital is £226 a week. Universities have privatised much of their housing stock in this period, which is undoubtedly the biggest factor in the rapid rise in rents. And this is not just a case of students not paying their rent through rent strikes, but students completely undermining the idea of universities as landlords, universities as service providers, and students as consumers. It's a battle with neoliberalism in education, with profiteering, with austerity. And by persevering with a rent strike, this year UCL students alone won £750,000 in rent subsidies. And it now looks like many more rent strikes are going to happen in campuses across the country, having learned from their victory. Another fight taking place in education this year is that against the Prevent Duty. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. Last October, Theresa May, then Home Secretary, made this a mandatory duty for teachers, nurses, lots of people in the public sector to have to report signs of radicalisation, and if they don't, then they could face discipline. So in the last year, we've now seen 4,000 referrals by the Prevent Duty of people who are alleged to be becoming radicalised. That's more than twice as many in the previous year, and a third of those identified as Muslim. We've seen students be referred to Prevent for campaigning about Palestine, for reading books on terrorism theory, for wearing a t-shirt with Arabic on it. Nothing more than just appearing Muslim and therefore being a suspect. So since then, students, teachers, people from the Muslim community, civil rights organisations, trade unions especially, have been campaigning on this. And in 3 educational institutions, we've managed to force the Prevent Duty out of campuses, meaning teachers and lecturers no longer have to train in it. And this year, and next month especially as part of Islamophobia Awareness Month, we're going to be ramping up activity, trying to force it out of every school, every college, every university campus. Perhaps one of the biggest fights we're currently mobilising students against is the government's moves to tear apart further and higher education. Their area reviews will merge colleges, meaning fewer courses, fewer teachers, and students having to travel miles and miles to get to their nearest institution. While the HE bill is attempting to move us totally away from a conception of education as a social good, which strengthens and enriches our society, towards one that is a privilege to be paid for purely for the benefit of your future employer. So one of the actions we're organising is linked to the fee rise. The fee rise is going to be linked to this so-called teaching excellence framework, And they're going to prove excellence by looking at the results of a survey that students fill out in 5 minutes at the end of their 3 years at university. And we're encouraging students not to fill in the survey so that the government has no data within which it can raise tuition fees. It's called the NSS boycott. If there's any students in the room, please get involved. And in just a few weeks' time, NUS will also march with UCU in a national demonstration in defence of further and higher education on the 19th of November. And in fact, it's not just a national demo, but an international one. We're going to be joined by our counterparts in Canada, South Africa, France and Spain, in various continents, coming onto the streets to make our voices heard. The other threat to our rights at the moment in education is particularly hitting international students, and this completely speaks to the crisis in the NHS as well. We know that the NHS is massively staffed by migrants. Now, Theresa May says she wants to crack down on immigration again, and she's including international students in her figures, despite the fact that 80% of the public doesn't consider international students as immigrants. Now, this is nothing new. Last year, it was discovered that 45,000 international students were deported on trumped-up charges of having failed their English tests. Now, we're currently supporting a group of those students in legal action, trying to take action against Theresa May and her government, and I think they're going to win. So these are the issues I think are important in education right now, and why I think this could be a really critical year. But where does the Labour Party fit into it? Well, obviously, as we've heard already, we have a very different Labour Party now. We have a leader and a shadow education minister who are for free education. Of course, this was the first pledge of Jeremy's leadership campaign, that he would bring in free higher education, but also bring back the maintenance grants that his Tories viciously cut. And I think that's partly why so many students joined the Labour Party, joined his campaign for the leadership. And I'm also incredibly encouraged that we now have a shadow Home Office Secretary who has been so active and so supportive on issues like getting rid of the Prevent Duty, defending international students, fighting racism. We've got a fantastic Shadow Home Secretary in Diane Abbott. But we need more than just good policy pledges from our party leaders. We need all of these issues translated into the movement. We need the Labour Party joining and supporting NUS's national demonstration. We need these issues being rooted in our campuses and communities through our Labour clubs, through our CLPs. We need more than just door knocking. We need all these groups and organisations campaigning on these education issues day in, day out. The government has cut our grants, crushed our staff, deported our friends, allowed vice-chancellors to earn millions while students owe millions. And they think they can keep on coming back for more, but they can't. This year we'll be there, students, migrants, nurses, doctors and Labour members, taking them on. Thanks for your time.